Boo! Well, I hope I didn't scare you, but it is Halloween time. So in today's video, I thought I would talk about some favorite Halloween things. Now here we have Snoopy, and he's definitely a big part of Halloween, but I think we'll leave him for another video. There are so many fun things about Halloween, and I tend to focus on the non-gruesome side of Halloween, the non-super scary part of Halloween, more lighthearted part of Halloween. That still leaves a lot to look at and have some fun with. So I thought I would narrow it down to 5 favorite Halloween treats, no tricks. So let's get started. Number 5. Ha! Well, I tricked you already, because here are some classic movies that some people find quite gruesome, and certainly they do pack quite a punch in terms of scares, even though they were filmed in the 1930s. Yes, these are the classic Universal monster movies, starting with the very first one, Dracula, followed by Frankenstein. Those two are probably the top two. And here's another example, The Wolfman. And I wanted to show you these because Universal has released an excellent series of Blu-ray discs with not only the movies themselves looking absolutely fantastic, probably better than they've ever looked, but also all kinds of bonus features. So if you're anything like me, you really like the audio commentaries, the documentaries, the historical stills and vintage trailers, things like that. So let's just take Frankenstein, boo, as an example. It's, quite frankly, the original horror show, as it says right here. The bonus features include The Frankenstein Files, How Hollywood Made a Monster, Karloff, The Gentle Monster, The Frankenstein Archives, feature commentary with film historian Rudy Belmer. It's just excellent, as Rudy always was. And a feature commentary with historian Sir Christopher Frayling. And as you can hear from that, there's quite a variety of bonus features on all of these Blu-rays, so I highly recommend them. Now, one I'm not holding in my hand, because it's around here someplace, but I can't find it right now, is The Bride of Frankenstein, the sequel to the original Frankenstein. And there are a lot of film historians and fans who feel that The Bride of Frankenstein is even superior to the first one. Certainly, it's a great film and has a lot to recommend it. But one reason I wanted to point out that Blu-ray in particular is because, in addition to all the fascinating bonus features that are on the Blu-ray disc, there's a wonderful audio commentary by film historian Scott McQueen. And he worked at Disney for a good number of years, was responsible for the restoration of a good number of Disney films, including Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And he gives one of the best audio commentaries I have ever heard on any classic film, or any film of any type for that matter. So I highly recommend that Blu-ray, and in fact, all of these. These classic films on Blu-ray are perfect for Halloween, and they are my entry for favorite Halloween treat number 5. Number 4. Well, my hands are empty, but it's not a trick. Or is it? Sort of a magic trick. You've heard of now you see him, now you don't. This is more like now you don't see it, and now you do. Because my 4th favorite Halloween treat is a blog called Dinosaur Dracula. Now, a lot of my friends have heard me talk about this blog over the years. I'm calling it a blog, more of a website, because it has so many wonderful features to it. But it's run by this wonderful pop culture enthusiast, I guess you would call him, and a great writer, Mad Matt, and he shares all kinds of fun, unexpected stuff, like vintage commercials, vintage video games, vintage advertisements for fun Halloween stuff like costumes and candy. Every year he covers the best junk food that's available at Halloween time. There's a feature called Dinosaur Dracula After Dark, which is only available after midnight and offers all kinds of weird and fun surprises. And there's lots of video clips and fun articles. Now, as much as I love blogs and websites, I also love podcasts, and I'm happy to say that Dinosaur Dracula has a podcast. Mad Matt does it in association with Jay from Sludge Central, and the two of them discuss spooky songs, soda, toys, all kinds of fun stuff. So I highly recommend their podcast as well. You can find out everything you want to know on the Dinosaur Dracula site. We're putting the address up right here. And of course, we'll include a link in the show notes, so be sure and look for that. Number 3, more monsters. Yes, that's right, more monsters. Get over it. You might recognize this Frankenberry cereal. As you probably know, the General Mills, or Big G, monster cereals are only available at Halloween time. There's Frankenberry, Count Chocula, and Boo Berry. But once upon a time, these cereals were available all year round. And I must say, with a better design. Here's a retro box that was released a couple Halloweens ago. And you can see the original designs here. So here we have Frankenberry again. And I really loved the fun cartoon original version. And when these were introduced in the 1970s, they had a series of cartoons that had this rivalry between Frankenberry and Count Chocula. Those commercials were so much fun, they were usually better than the shows that the commercials were on. And a few years after Count Chocula and Frankenberry were introduced, Boo Berry was added to the cast. Boo Berry was a very fun addition to the cast because unlike Count Chocula and Frankenberry, who were always scared, Boo Berry was pretty hard to rattle, which is pretty good because he's a ghost and carries a chain. And these boxes were particularly fun because they had masks. So let's face it, the monster cereals are my pick for number 3 of my favorite Halloween treats. Number 2. For the number 2 spot, I'd like to talk about It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, the 1966 classic Halloween TV special, which was really the first Halloween TV special. Such a thing had not been heard of before that. As you all know, that was a huge hit. It's been shown every year since. It's an all-time animation classic, everyone's favorite. But the funny thing is that for so many years, decades, as much Peanuts merchandise as was issued, there hadn't been any Peanuts merchandise issued that tied in specifically to the TV special. There had been Great Pumpkin-themed merchandise produced by Hallmark. Stay tuned for a video all about that soon. But when it came to the TV special, nothing that tied in specifically to that. Until a few years back, when a company called Playing Mantis issued these wonderful Charlie Brown figures that were specifically about It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. So this is one of 2 sets that were issued. On the sides, you can see great scenes from the TV special using the great animation that's seen every year in the animated special, including Charlie Brown's sheet where he had some trouble with the scissors. On the back, we see all the other figures as well, including some sets, which I don't have, but we can take a look at the pictures. We have Snoopy as the World War I flying ace and Lucy at the Halloween party. Both of those play sets were available, so you could take these figures and put them into those sets if you wanted to. So that's one of the sets. Here's the other one, where we have Frida with her naturally curly hair. We have Lucy with her witch mask. And of course, we have the faithful follower of the Great Pumpkin, Linus himself. There's just really fun accessories, and these figures are so well done. So what could be more fantastic than these figures tying into everybody's favorite Halloween special? So those are definitely among my favorite Halloween treats. Number 1. So of course, my favorite Halloween treat had to be Disney themed, and it's Donald Duck and Trick or Treat. But I'm not talking about the cartoon, although that, of course, is great and would be on anyone's top 5 list. I'm talking about the comic book that was also released in 1952 and drawn by Carl Barks and adapted by him from the cartoon. Now, I don't personally own a copy of the original 1952 comic book, but we can show you a picture of it. That was definitely a great classic. And one of the fascinating things about the comic book is that in order to expand it into a feature-length comic book story, Carl Barks added some scenes. So there was a sequence where the nephews help Witch Hazel gather some of her ingredients needed for the witch's brew, and some extra details such as Donald donning a suit of armor. But the most elaborate sequence added by Barks was inspired by the idea of all these monsters and goblins coming to Donald's front door, seen in the cartoon. Barks created this sort of super goblin or ogre called Smorgasbord, and he wore this little derby hat. Well, ironically, before the comic book was published, the editors thought that it might be a little too gruesome, so they took out the part that Carl Barks had added about Smorgasbord. Carl Barks was given copies of the storyboard drawings that had been done by veteran Disney story artist Ralph Wright to create the cartoon. He took those story drawings and adapted the cartoon story into the comic book story. Carl Barks had not seen the finished cartoon at that time, probably because it had not been finished. Now, reprinting comic book stories, however great they were, was not really a big thing in that era, so Trick or Treat had not been republished in the years following until 1969, when it was given this kind of great showcase in Walt Disney Comics Digest. And here's the cover showing that a Gold Key classic is going to be inside. And another way we can tell this is 1969, by the way, is because the Haunted Mansion is also being featured in a text story, as it turns out. But the really exciting news came in 1986 with the hardcover publication, the Carl Barks Library, published by Another Rainbow. This was a 10-set series of hardcover volumes, 3 hardcovers in each set, 30 volumes. And one of the great things they did was they restored Carl Barks' original version of Trick or Treat for this publication. That meant that all these pages with Smorgasbord were restored. And how fun for fans of Trick or Treat, Carl Barks, Donald Duck. Everybody was happy to see Carl Barks' original version of the story, including this differing opening sequence, which is actually a reflection of the actual cartoon. But again, the editors felt that it was perhaps a little too gruesome, and more importantly, perhaps, they wanted to open a Donald Duck story with Donald Duck. So it makes a certain amount of sense. But anyhow, this restores the version that Carl Barks originally wrote and drew. And it's been republished many times over the years now with the original Carl Barks version intact. So the Trick or Treat comic book is certainly my #1 favorite Halloween treat, at least this year. Thank you for joining me for this spooky celebration of the Halloween season. There's more Halloween fun coming up next week, so be sure and be here for that video. And in the meantime, don't worry, Interpol has expressed its concern.